Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, we are from 6th group, consists of me, Hesti Mayangsari, name 17, 16, 2000, and then 363, and my other friends, her name is Wani Rizky Adriani, and then Stefani Indah Pangestu. Today, we are going to discuss about linguistic aspect of interlanguage. So there are three parts of this. The first is that typological universals, its relative clauses, and then universal grammar, and the next is learning ability. So the first is we have to discuss about typological universals relative clauses. You can see that a good example of how linguistic inquiry can shed light on interlanguage development can be found in the study of relative clauses. Language vary in whether they have relative clauses structure. This linguistic difference influences the ease with which learners are able to learn relative clauses. And then learners who learn about first language includes relative clauses find them easier to learn than learners whose first language does not, and consequently so it's mean that when we want to study about how to speak in a first language, so we have to study about relative clauses to make it easier, like that. And then the next is when learners of second language English begin to acquire relative clauses, they typically begin with the first type. This linguistic structure of English, for example, the fact that relative clauses may or may not interrupt the main clause. Yes, and then influences how acquisition proceeds. And a third effect of relative clauses structure and second language acquisition can be identified. Linguistics have shown that languages are more likely to permit relative clauses with a subject pronoun, for example, who, than with an object of relative uh, relativization known as the accessibility. Here CNN has been identified, so it's mean that based on our opinion in a linguistic, we have to make it more make the others know what we want to say. Yeah, that's maybe the next presenter will be discuss about the universal grammar and then the learning ability.
Okay guys, the next is learnability. Learnability is Chomsky argued that the input to which children are exposed is insufficient to enable them to discover the rules of language they are trying to learn. He has claimed that children learning their L1 must rely on innate knowledge of language because otherwise the task facing them is an impossible one. Example, a child learning English needs to discover that sentences like this are ungrammatical.
Okay, after that, I will explain the last material about learnability. I will explain about learnability. Some keys argue that the input to which children are exposed is insufficient to enable them to discover the rules of language they are trying to learn. He has claimed that the children, their language one, must rely on innate knowledge of language because otherwise the task facing them is possible one. For example, a child learning English needs to discover that sentences like this are ungrammatical. The argument is that it can if the input consists only of positive evidence, because the learner can never be sure they will not hear a sentence where the adverb is between the verb and direct object. Learners need positive evidence which provide information only about what is grammatical in the language, and negative evidence is input that provides direct evidence of what is ungrammatical in language. Positive evidence is it provides information only about what is grammatical in language, because learners can never be sure they will not hear a sentence where the adverb is between the verb and direct object. Negative evidence is input that provides direct evidence of what ungrammatical in a language, would make it possible for children to find out the sentence like the one above are ungrammatical.